In this video, how to book flights properly. Now, I didn't think that booking flights was such a skill that needed to be explained until just recently one of my family members booked a flight to come visit me, and they booked a flight with 2 layovers. Now, there is zero reason why someone flying from Canada or the USA to Mexico would need 2 layovers. And so that's partly the inspiration to this video. Now that I think about it, another time, another family member booked on Spirit Airlines to fly to Mexico, which also caused problems, which is another huge red flag. So in any case, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to book flights properly, and I'm going to be explaining to you my method for booking flights, how I think about the logistics behind booking flights, which is just as important. So I have here a couple tabs with a couple of the tools in my toolkit. So we have flightsfrom.com. You might not be familiar with this site, but it's very, very helpful. Then we have Google Flights, good old trusty Google Flights. And then we have onwardticket.com, which I'll come back to later. And then I have a website or a airline website for Volaris Airlines in Mexico, but I'll come back to as well how airline websites fit into this picture. So we're going to start here on flightsfrom.com. And basically, wherever you live, wherever you're flying from, this is a really cool website to see where are all the direct flights in the world from where I'm flying from. So let's just say a popular one might be New York. So if we look at all the different flights from New York, we have 189 destinations with 73 airlines for direct nonstop flights. And you can do this thing where you pull up the Map Explorer and you say, wow, like these are all the places I can fly direct from JFK in New York. We can go to Nairobi direct. That's pretty nuts. We can go to Tashkent direct. We can go to Mumbai direct. We can go to New Zealand direct, right? So this kind of gives you an idea of the accessible universe via direct flights from a given destination, which is huge because direct flights are extremely valuable relative to layovers. So instead of JFK, let's take a more kind of local example. So let's look at León, Mexico. Show all destinations from BJX, which is León, Guanajuato Airport. And you can see here that we have a much more limited set of opportunities. We have 31 destinations with 5 airlines in terms of direct nonstop flights from BJX, okay? And we can look at this in the Flight Explorer and see where can we fly to direct from BJX. And we can see, you know, really this looks very different than that New York map, but we basically have direct flights to a number of spots in the USA as well as Mexico, and it looks like even, oh no, that's just Tuxtla. So really it's just the US and Mexico, right? And so when you're thinking about, you know, I want a direct flight to where I live, blah, 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 this is how you might want to think about it. So if you're based in Colorado or Idaho or something, you might start thinking, okay, how do I get to Idaho from León? Okay, maybe I do direct to Fresno or Sacramento or San Jose, and then from San Jose, I connect to Idaho. Maybe I do Texas to Idaho, right? Something like that. So looking at this map, you can sort of visualizing your route to wherever you happen to be flying to, wherever you live back in North America, that kind of thing, okay? So we're looking at our destinations, and beyond the map, the second really important thing I wanted to mention about this website is you can see which days of the week they fly to particular destinations. So you can see that for Mexico City, there's 5 to 6 flights a day, and they're flying every single day of the week, right? But as we start scrolling down to Chicago, for example, we have 1 flight per day, and it looks like they do that 1 flight per day every day except Tuesday, right? And we keep scrolling down the list, and we see that there's a San Jose flight, but only on Tuesdays and Fridays. So this is really important to think about because people don't think about direct flights in terms of lining it up with the correct day of the week. They think maybe they just expect that a route flies every single day, but no, routes do not fly every single day except for the most popular routes, which is why they're only flying from Leon to La Paz 2 days a week on Saturdays and Tuesday, right? So that's something to think about. So let's take Chicago, for example. Where was Chicago at? Because we really do have a lot of people in the mentorship and people in the audience from Chicago. So we can see that they don't fly. There's no direct flight to Chicago on Friday and on Sunday. So we go over to trusty Google Maps. I assume you know kind of some of the basics of Google Maps, right? And we're going to look at about a month from now, late January. It's December 26th at the time of this recording. So we're going to look a month out, and let's look at Friday, right? And we look at Friday, and there's no nonstop flights. Well, why is that? Okay, we come back here and we see, oh, they don't fly on Friday. So then we go, okay, well, I'm down to fly Thursday instead. Actually, it's even cheaper, so let's do that. Give me Thursday. What's going on? Because there should be a nonstop flight here on the Thursday or on the Saturday. Here we go. So on Saturday, we get a nonstop flight. In fact, we get 2 nonstop flights on the Saturday. And so this is huge because you look at Friday and we have 0 nonstop flights. And we have Saturday and we have 2 nonstop flights. And I think this is something that people don't think about enough, where they say they get very hard-headed in terms of, oh, I must travel on this specific day, without realizing that the world doesn't, coalesce in their favor every single day of the week, that there are certain flights only on particular days of the week. And so if you were just in this hard-headed mode of, I must fly on the 27th, well, that works, but let's just say, I must fly on the 26th, I must fly on Friday, I want to take advantage of the weekend in Chicago, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's no direct flights on this day for this particular route. And someone might just be whatever, they might not realize that this is the case, but they might end up just booking this flight because they say to themselves, okay, well, this is what we have on the 26th. I guess I'm going to be booking American Airlines and I have a layover, whatever it is, right? But if that same person was just willing to fly one day early or one day later, in this case, one day later, they would have a direct nonstop flight. So you need to think about this. You need to think, am I willing to be flexible? Am I willing to fly on a different day to have a nonstop flight versus a layover? And that calculus is going to be different for everyone based on the situation, if there's a wedding or whatever. But in a lot of cases, you should optimize for nonstop flights. And so another aspect of Google Flights that I use a lot is I'm specifically filtering nonstop only. This is the filter I use the most. I do filter by bags because I think carry-on only is important. And I guess I don't even really filter by price that much. I really only use this filter, the nonstop filter. And then so this is my real opportunity set here, where I see, okay, I can fly direct on the Monday or the Tuesday or the Wednesday or the Saturday, and then I start mentally building my plans around that, because I really do not like layovers, especially the example I mentioned at the beginning where a family member had 2 layovers. Why do you think that person has 2 layovers? Probably because they didn't employ what we're talking about in this video. They didn't consider that certain routes only fly on certain days. Probably worth considering or mentioning that something is wrong about what's shown on Flights From versus what's shown on Google Maps, because there's no Thursday direct flight here, yet it says that there should be on Flights From, which is why, Flights From is really to kind of get an idea is really to sort of see what is the universe of opportunities. And then once you know the universe of opportunities and which flights fly on certain days, then you can come over to Google Flights and hone in on things even more. Okay? So now we know we have our nonstop flights. And if you said, I must fly on Thursday or Friday, that's when I would expand this filter to be one stop or fewer. There's no situation where I will ever fly with 2 layovers. I don't care if I'm going to Japan or Dubai, one stop or fewer. Otherwise, I'll take a break mid-trip and stay in a hotel or something. There's no way I'm doing 2 layovers for a number of reasons, right? If there's a delay, maybe you miss your layover, so many things can go wrong. Plus the fact that it's just incredibly unpleasant, right? And even worse if you're checking a bag. My God, checking a bag with 2 layovers, good luck. Anyway, so one stop or fewer, we've expanded the known universe because we've decided we must fly on Thursday or Friday. So we go to Thursday. Cool, finally we're getting some stuff. And now these are basically our options. I think another thing that brokies do is they might say, well, they might just pick this top result or something and say, you know what, I'm going to save 66 pesos and choose Viva Aerobus, but it's 10 hours longer, 11 hours longer of trip. So this should be a very obvious calculus that this person should invest an extra 60 pesos or $3 in order to fly American. Now, taking this a step further, how much should you be willing to pay to have an easier flight? I really think this is one of the things that people should invest money in. I think there's studies out there that, people really love cheaping out on flights, and they do uncomfortable travel plans in order to save $100 and stuff like that. Oh my God, that has got to be the worst mindset ever. You should be willing to spend an extra $150 to fly direct instead of having a layover. You should be willing to spend extra to not have 2 layovers. That's insane. You should be willing to pay extra to have a 6-hour total flight time instead of 17 hours or even 7 hours. If you can shave an hour off for, $50 or something, it's probably worth it in a lot of cases, So you got to do that calculus, but definitely one of the areas where people should not be cheaping out. Like, it's really not that big of savings to make it worth it to say, I'm going to do an extra layover to save $100. That's insane to me. Truly insane. Okay, so where were we? So we use this filter a lot. We start with nonstop. And if it really isn't giving us what we want, then we'll do the one stop or fewer filter. And you should basically always be applying this filter. So now that you've basically honed in on the exact flight that you want, all right? So I'll just take this example of I want this nonstop Volaris flight, okay? You've honed in on the flight you want. Obviously, you can select this flight and book this directly on Google Maps. On Google Flights. I don't know why I keep saying that. Do not do this. Do not book your flight on a flight aggregator like Google Maps. You are much better off going directly to the company website, to the airline website, and booking this exact same flight directly on the website. So in this case, where are we coming from? So we're coming from BJX. We're going to Chicago. So it's ORD is Chicago, right? And here we have it. So here we have our exact flight. Cool. Fecha de regreso. No, we don't want that. We want one way. Oh, this is something I forgot to mention. One ways. So we should really always be doing one ways. And actually, if you were to just straight up open Google Flights directly, it's defaulting to round trip. Why do you think it defaults to round trip? There are 2 reasons for this. One, the New World Order, the World Economic Forum. No, I'm joking. The reason is because they will make more money if you book a round trip. It's basically twice the revenue for you. So they're incentivized to have you book a round trip right off the bat because it's more immediate revenue in the door, both for Google as the flight aggregator, they're getting a cut obviously, and then for the airline. So that's why the airline as well is incentivizing you to do a round trip ticket. I highly recommend just doing one-way flights. In 99% of situations, I think one-way flights are better. There are some times where you can see pretty big discounts if you do a round trip, like round trip Buenos Aires or something like that. But for most situations, you really want to go to Viaje Sencillo. You want to do a one-way flight. Okay, so here's where we're going to buscar our vuelos. We're going to search for a flight, right? So this is the exact flight that we had honed in on here, right? This exact flight that we had honed in on. Apparently it's interestingly slightly cheaper here on Google and then slightly more expensive here on Volaris. But I would even say even at, it being 100 pesos more, which is like $5, I think it's actually worth paying $5 extra to book it on the Volaris site. And there's a couple reasons for that. It's going to make it easier to get a refund. It's going to make it easier to switch the date of your flight. It's going to make it easier with a lot of these things. And then beyond that, you'll probably get a better seat. Me personally, I don't really pay for the upgraded seats that much. I don't really care about being in row 15 versus row 30 enough to pay extra for that. But if you book on an aggregator like Google or even Expedia, you're going to get a worse seat, all else being equal, because Volaris is going to give the better seats, the better randomized seats to people who book directly with Volaris, people that are logging in, they're putting in their frequent flyer number. You're going to get a better randomized seat booking directly on Volaris versus booking on Google. If you book on Google, that's when you're going to get a worse randomized seat, right? So maybe it's $5 more expensive. That's not always the case, but you might end up with a slightly better seat, and it's going to make it easier to potentially get a refund later, things like that. Cool. So the last step of this is because we're doing a one-way flight, right? We were talked about how we're just doing a one-way. The last step is you want to go to onwardticket.com and you want to buy a return flight reservation. Now this is $16 to get your flight reservation, and what this is a verified flight reservation that is verifiable on airline websites, so that when you go to the airport and you check in for your flight and that airline attendant or the person checking you in says, do you have a return flight? Do you have a proof of departure? You say, yeah, here's my flight reservation. Here's my proof of departure. And you're going to show this onward ticket thing. Now, it's just $16. It's fully legit. These types of things have been around for years and years. There's many sites that do this. I think Onward Ticket is the most reputable. So this is the one I used. I used to use Expedia. And we'll just go to Expedia. So I used to use Expedia a lot for booking flights and then canceling them within 24 hours because they have a 24-hour cancellation policy where if you cancel, it's totally free, right? And I did that for years and years. But there was one time where I did kind of get screwed, and with all the energy from landing in a new country or whatever, I guess I just forgot to cancel. And so I kind of got screwed. I managed to kind of salvage it and switch the flight to like a later date, 6 months later or something, and sort of salvage it. But I did kind of get screwed. And so you have to really remember to log back into Expedia. You might not have data, right, when you land in a new country, but you have to log into Expedia within 24 hours. You got to cancel your flight, and it's a little bit of mental overhead. So instead of dealing with that, I just prefer to spend the $16 and get the flight reservation if I need it. So I no longer do the Wikipedia thing or the Expedia thing so much, and I just do the onward ticket. Cool. So just to summarize all the steps of what we talked about so far. So we start with flightsfrom.com to get inspiration and idea of the known universe. Then we go to Google Flights to hone in on the specific flight that we want. Then we go to the airline website and we book the flight directly on the airline website. And then once we've booked the flight, we go to Onward Ticket and get the return ticket reservation so that we have no problems with checking in and all that good stuff. Now, I know some people might say, oh, don't book directly on the website. Use, I don't know, like Chase Rewards or Expedia and get double the points, blah, blah, blah. Move your points over from British Airways to the other thing. That's not what this video is about. Maybe I'll go into that stuff in another video in terms of points hacking. But this video was really super focused on the process in terms of how I book flights correctly, right? So we just talked about the process, and then of course I'll mention again, one layover or fewer direct flights whenever possible, carry-on only whenever possible. I'll get into that in future videos. Do not use discount airlines, especially do not use Frontier or Spirit. I also hear Avianca is really bad in Colombia. A lot of the discount airlines all across the world are just not worth the savings that they provide, so don't use discount airlines. Technically, I think Volaris is a discount airline, but anyway, you've been warned. So that's the process. That's how I think about booking flights. Hopefully you guys learned some interesting information here.